President Trump is striking fear into the hearts of liberals everywhere by not explicitly ruling out him seeking a third term in office.
NBC interviewed Trump over the phone this weekend. The outlet writes, when asked whether he wanted another term, the president responded, "I like working." "I'm not joking," Trump said when asked to clarify, "but it's far too early to think about it."
And here's Trump on Air Force One commenting on the matter.
I don't want to talk about a third term now because no matter how you look at it, we got a long time to go. We have a long time. You know, we have almost 4 years to go. And that's a long time. But despite that, so many people are saying, you've got to run again. They love the job we do. Most importantly, they love the job we do.
Of course, the 22nd Amendment of the Constitution is pretty clear. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice.
Trump, however, did not rule out a hypothetical method where the current vice president runs for office and then hands the baton off to Trump. Now, perhaps in that case, Trump technically wouldn't be elected, which some say then would not be violating the 22nd Amendment specifically. Trump did say there were other methods too. He was unclear on those specifics.
Notre Dame law professor Derek Muller conceded to the New York Times that there are conflicting views on the 22nd Amendment. The 12th Amendment, however, would be an extra hurdle for Trump to clear if he were to go with the method we just mentioned a moment ago. The 12th Amendment reads in part, "No person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States."
And there's also a congressional route where lawmakers can extend term limits. Congressman Andy Ogles actually crafted a resolution that would do just that. Political commentator Steve Bannon was the first to float the idea of Trump serving a third term this year, the first to prominently do so.
Political consultant and advocacy journalist Lauren Windsor wrote on X, "Trump is talking about an unconstitutional third term so that you stop talking about Signalgate. Don't take the bait."
Congressman Ogles, meanwhile, argues that Trump running for a third term wouldn't be a coronation. He'd have to be elected. He writes the following, "Since FDR, Democrats have continued to sabotage the courts by handpicking political operatives who call themselves judges. These nefarious strategies by Democrats have been taking place for decades. President Trump should be allowed, if he chooses to seek a third term, to categorically undo the decay progressives have wrought on our great country." Look, all you worried liberals out there, I'm gonna reassure you. You don't often come to me, I think, for great comfort, but I'm going to give it to you. Trump will not be president for a third time. It is not possible. He could run for president again. He could campaign. He can do whatever he wants, but he cannot be sworn in by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to be president a third time because the Constitution is perfectly clear based on those two amendments. He can't run, he can't be elected for a third term. And that vice president thing where like Vance runs and he's the vice president, first of all, even imagining doing that is crazy. And then what Vance steps aside and Trump could automatically become, but the other amendment says you can't be vice president if you're not eligible to be president. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to happen. I'm reassuring you it's not going to happen. He is going to, I don't know that he'll disappear, or I don't know that he'll retire or stop being the most important political force ever. I have no idea, but he will not be sworn in as president for a third time.
It would certainly be flagrantly unconstitutional for him to seek a third term. There's no question about that. Then the question arises, though, what's he saying it for? Now, you could argue that it is the diversionary tactic that that person on Twitter was suggesting.
It's a little conspiratorial to me.
Well, why do you think he's saying it?
I think he doesn't like to rule things out, period. He never takes things off the table. He never says explicitly, I'm not going to do this or I'm not going to do that. Look, he should say, I'm not going to be president for a third time. I'm not going to let him off the hook for this. But it's also, like he could say, why hasn't he, sworn off riding a fire-breathing dragon around the planet? It's just not something that can happen.
But I think that the problem is, Robby, that so often he has said things that people initially feel were absurd, and then it just gets dismissed as a joke, and then over time it becomes less of a joke. The obvious example right now, I think, is though the United States is going to buy Greenland or take over Greenland or invade Greenland, when that was first suggested back in his first term, people were like, oh, this is what another amusing Trump suggestion. And now it is less amusing. I still think it's probably not going to happen, but J.D. Vance was just there a few days ago making the case for it. And we go down the line to other elements which are, I think, darker, pertaining to things that he is doing right now. To hell with constitutional protections, thinking particularly of the pursuit of the executive orders against law firms, which are on their face intended to intimidate those law firms from representing people who oppose his administration. So the idea that, oh, well, we can dismiss this because it's unconstitutional, well, there are lots of things that he's suggesting that seem to me unconstitutional.
Well, then again, he can do whatever, and then someone can file a legal action against him, and then the courts would ultimately decide. I think it is open to no real interpretation, and I know the Supreme Court is conservative leaning in that it has a majority conservative justices. I cannot imagine or picture them saying that
a third term
is okay based on the very plain, obvious, and direct meaning of the Constitution. And again, I know they're Republican leaning, but they do demonstrate more independence than other. Yes, if it was up to Congress and Republicans controlled Congress, then yes, he would be perfectly serving a third term. It's up to the Supreme Court, and they rule against Republican interests, not as much as liberals want them to, but it does happen.
I basically agree with you on the Supreme Court because it is so clear-cut. The language, and we read it out in the introduction there, leaves almost no room for ambiguity. But then I think you have people like Congressman Ogles there in the quotes that we also read, saying, oh, he should go ahead. Bannon, who sometimes is a sort of a troll, honestly, he enjoys trolling liberals, and other times, he was chief strategist, I think was the official title during Trump's campaign. So he's a serious figure in many ways, suggesting these things as a serious thing. And your point about the courts, yes, the courts will stop it, but we have people like my old friend Elon Musk talking about a judicial coup when judges simply are ruling against the administration. That is not the kind of rhetoric that suggests a president or a team that will bow down to the rightful judicial authorities.
They can't. There is a method for amending the Constitution. I can't imagine that happening, but they could get a number. What it's 2/3 of states,
three-quarters
of states,
38 states
to accomplish that. That is unimaginable that would actually take place, but you could do that route. Also, in the selection of J.D. Vance in particular to be his vice president, I think was a soft signal, not an absolutely abundantly clear signal, but a signal that J.D. Vance is his designated successor to run for president and succeed him.
Yeah, and obviously of a different generation, about 40 years younger almost?
Yes.
So, it's a whole, and very much rooted in the same populist element. So, quite possibly, but I still have, just temperamentally, I have some difficulty in seeing Donald Trump quietly shuffling off the stage to play golf.
I disagree. If your hair is on fire, liberals, I got a bucket of water for you.
I've no hair to go on. If I had hair, it would be on fire.
Oh, dear. All right, coming up next, the White House Correspondents Association caved to Trump. There goes another one we'll discuss. Stay tuned.